You know what, Malik? I'm tired.
Tired of what?
Tired of carrying everything by myself. Every one of these plaques, every one of these trophies, I earned them. Lazy?
That's what you think of me?
Don't start acting offended now.
In the heart of Charlotte's booming financial district stood a towering glass headquarters that carried Vanessa Turner's name across newspapers, business magazines, and television screens. Inside the building, entire hallways celebrated her accomplishments through framed awards, polished trophies, and photographs with governors, celebrities, and industry giants. Employees spoke her name with admiration whenever she passed through the corridors. Investors praised her vision during interviews and conferences. To the outside world, she appeared untouchable. Few people realized that success had slowly built a wall between Vanessa and the people closest to her. That particular morning began like many others. Vanessa stood behind an enormous desk signing contracts while assistants moved quietly around her office. Across the room sat her husband, Malik Turner, observing everything in silence. The marriage that once thrived on teamwork now felt strangely distant. Vanessa barely acknowledged his presence as she worked through stacks of documents. The room contained enough success to impress anyone, yet it lacked the warmth that once made it feel like home.
This is completely unacceptable. You know what these contracts mean to the merger, and yet you sit there silently while I clean up your mess.
Without warning, Vanessa broke the silence with words sharper than any business negotiation. She questioned whether life would have been easier with a partner who contributed more to her success. The statement hung heavily in the air between them. Malik showed no visible reaction despite the cruelty behind her comment. Years earlier, such words might have started an argument. Now they simply revealed how little she understood about the man sitting across from her. Vanessa continued speaking as though explaining an obvious truth. She described the burden of leading a massive company while carrying responsibilities she believed nobody else could handle. Every sentence revealed growing pride disguised as confidence. She had spent so many years hearing praise that she no longer questioned the narrative surrounding her success. Meanwhile, Malik remained calm and attentive. His silence concealed knowledge that would have shocked everyone in the building. Unknown to Vanessa, several influential directors were already waiting for guidance from Malik that very morning. Their calls would never appear on company reports. Their meetings would never be featured in magazines. Yet many of the company's most important decisions quietly passed through him before reaching anyone else. He preferred it that way. Influence, in his experience, grew strongest when it remained unseen.
Receiving this Global Visionary Award is the honor of a lifetime. I want to thank my incredible team and my family for their unwavering support.
For years, reporters celebrated Vanessa as a self-made visionary. Business publications praised her brilliance and determination. Award ceremonies repeatedly elevated her achievements before cheering audiences. Malik never challenged those narratives. He never requested recognition or public credit. He understood something many powerful people forgot. Real confidence rarely demands attention because it already knows its worth. As the company expanded, Vanessa slowly began believing the version of events repeated by the media. She forgot who reviewed early proposals when the company struggled for survival. She forgot who spent countless nights analyzing risks and opportunities behind closed doors. She forgot who quietly introduced her to influential circles that opened impossible doors. Most importantly, she forgot that some foundations become invisible only because the structure above them grows taller. The change happened gradually enough that few people noticed. Vanessa's gratitude slowly transformed into entitlement. Success became expectation rather than blessing. Compliments became fuel for an expanding ego. The spotlight followed her everywhere, and eventually she stopped seeing anyone standing beyond its reach. Malik observed the transformation with disappointment rather than anger. He understood that power often reveals character more than it changes it. Several weeks later, Vanessa hosted an exclusive dinner attended by executives, investors, and senior advisors. The gathering took place inside a luxury rooftop restaurant overlooking Charlotte's glowing skyline. Conversations revolved around profits, acquisitions, and future dominance. Wealth and ambition filled every corner of the room. Malik attended quietly beside his wife, fully aware that appearances mattered in the corporate world. What happened during that dinner would reveal far more than financial success.
Vanessa built an empire that nobody else in this room could have created. And Malik is the luckiest husband in America for getting a front row seat to greatness.
As crystal glasses rose into the air, Elliot Graves offered a celebratory toast. Vanessa built an empire that nobody else in this room could have created, he declared proudly. Vanessa smiled while the guests applauded enthusiastically. And Malik is the luckiest husband in America for getting a front row seat to greatness, Elliot added, drawing laughter from several executives. Instead of reacting, Malik calmly lifted his own glass and returned the smile. His composure unsettled more people than anger ever could, and several guests quietly wondered whether they had underestimated the wrong person. The laughter from that rooftop dinner echoed in Malik's mind long after the evening ended. It was not because the remarks had wounded him. The comments merely confirmed something he had suspected for years. Too many people confused visibility with value. They assumed the person receiving applause must also be the person creating results. As the city lights shimmered beyond the windows of his car that night, Malik quietly decided it was time for a different chapter to begin. The following morning, Malik began making a series of carefully planned phone calls. He spoke with directors, investors, and trusted decision-makers whose opinions carried enormous weight. None of the conversations involved threats or manipulation. Instead, he shared observations supported by facts, numbers, and long-term projections. Every discussion focused on protecting the company's future. By the end of the week, several influential figures had started viewing the organization through a different lens. Over the next several months, private meetings became increasingly common. Directors who once relied entirely on Vanessa's perspective began seeking Malik's insight. He presented risks others overlooked and opportunities nobody had considered. His explanations were precise, practical, and impossible to dismiss. Many left those meetings with more questions than answers. Yet each conversation strengthened their trust in his judgment. One by one, board members started recognizing a hidden pattern. Many of the company's greatest victories traced back to ideas Malik had introduced years earlier. Several major crises had been resolved through recommendations he provided behind the scenes. Important partnerships had succeeded because of relationships he quietly maintained. The realization spread gradually among leadership circles. Soon, the man few people noticed became the man many people wanted to hear from. Meanwhile, Vanessa remained focused on public success. Magazine interviews continued celebrating her accomplishments. Industry conferences invited her as a featured speaker. Cameras followed her through every achievement and announcement. The attention reinforced her belief that she alone guided the company's destiny. She never imagined a different narrative was forming behind closed doors. By the time she sensed change, it had already gained momentum. The turning point arrived when the company announced its largest acquisition in history. Financial news outlets described the deal as transformative. Investors celebrated the possibility of unprecedented growth. Employees proudly discussed the announcement in hallways and break rooms. Vanessa treated the acquisition as the crowning achievement of her career. What nobody publicly knew was that serious dangers were hidden beneath the promising headlines. Months earlier, Malik had identified weaknesses buried deep within the acquisition proposal. Certain debt obligations appeared far more dangerous than executives realized. Market conditions created risks that were easy to ignore during periods of optimism. He privately shared those concerns with Elliot Graves. Rather than investigate the warnings, Elliot dismissed them outright. His confidence prevented him from seeing the storm approaching. As preparations continued, warning signs multiplied throughout the financial reports. Debt levels climbed steadily higher. Investor confidence began showing subtle cracks. Market analysts raised questions that executives struggled to answer. Behind the scenes, directors quietly compared notes with Malik. Each new concern strengthened their belief that he understood the company's future more clearly than anyone else. Trust, once earned, continued to grow. The pressure eventually reached Vanessa's office. Investors requested additional explanations. Directors demanded more detailed forecasts. Senior executives appeared increasingly nervous during meetings. Vanessa interpreted the concern as temporary resistance to innovation. She believed confidence alone would silence criticism. Unfortunately, confidence cannot erase facts. The questions continued growing louder with each passing week.
Why does everyone suddenly doubt my decisions?
They aren't doubting authority.
They're questioning risk.
One evening, Vanessa arrived home carrying a stack of documents and visible frustration. "Why does everyone suddenly doubt my decisions?" she demanded while pacing across the room. Malik calmly met her gaze before replying, "They aren't doubting authority. They are questioning risk. The answer irritated her because it sounded less like a husband and more like an experienced strategist. For a brief moment, uncertainty crossed her face before pride quickly pushed it away again. Several weeks later, the company announced an emergency board meeting. Rumors spread through every department of the headquarters. Employees whispered in elevators and hallways about disagreements among leadership. Financial analysts predicted a tense confrontation that could reshape the company's future. Executives avoided discussing the situation publicly, but the anxiety was impossible to hide. Everyone sensed that a major turning point was approaching.
The projections were flawed. I can't present it like this. It needs more conviction. We didn't just survive this downturn, we positioned ourselves for growth.
On the night before the meeting, Vanessa stood before a mirror rehearsing the speech she intended to deliver. Confidence radiated from every word she practiced. She believed the board simply needed reassurance and stronger leadership. Across the room, Malik watched quietly from a chair near the window. Beyond the glass, city lights stretched across the horizon like distant stars. Neither of them realized that their marriage was about to face its greatest test. Morning arrived cold and bright over Charlotte. The boardroom occupied the highest floor of the company's headquarters, surrounded by walls of glass overlooking the city below. Directors arrived one after another, carrying folders and serious expressions. Conversations stopped whenever certain individuals entered the room. The atmosphere felt heavier than usual, as though everyone were waiting for an unseen signal. Even seasoned executives appeared unusually cautious. When Malik entered the boardroom, several directors greeted him with visible respect. The reaction surprised a few executives who rarely paid attention to him before. Vanessa noticed the exchanges but dismissed them as simple courtesy. Elliot Graves responded differently. His expression tightened the moment he saw Malik take a seat near the center of the room. Something about the room felt different, though nobody openly explained why. The meeting began with standard reports and financial summaries. At first, everything seemed routine. Then the discussion shifted toward the acquisition project. Questions emerged regarding debt exposure, long-term liabilities, and overlooked risks. Each answer provided by Elliot created additional concerns. Directors exchanged uneasy glances as confidence around the table slowly began to erode. As concerns multiplied, one director finally stood and requested a discussion about leadership oversight. The room immediately fell silent. Vanessa frowned, unable to understand why the conversation had shifted away from financial projections. Several directors looked toward Malik before speaking. Their reactions created visible confusion across her face. For the first time in years, certainty abandoned her. The chairman then revealed a proposal that had been quietly developed over many months. The board planned to establish a powerful strategic oversight position that would answer directly to directors rather than executive leadership. The role carried authority over major company decisions and long-term planning. Vanessa stared at the document in disbelief. Elliot appeared equally stunned. Neither of them had expected such a dramatic announcement. The room grew even quieter when Vanessa asked who would occupy the new position. Nobody answered immediately. Instead, several directors exchanged knowing smiles. The chairman finally turned toward Malik and invited him to take his seat at the head of the strategic committee. Gasps spread throughout the room. Vanessa froze as the truth unfolded before her eyes. One after another, directors began describing contributions Malik had made throughout the company's history. They praised solutions he had developed, risks he had identified, and relationships he had cultivated. Then Malik presented documentation revealing warnings that Elliot had repeatedly ignored. The evidence was overwhelming. Within a short time, Elliot lost both credibility and influence. Years of hidden work finally stepped into the light. After the meeting ended, only Vanessa and Malik remained inside the towering glass boardroom. The city shimmered beneath the setting sun while silence settled between them. Vanessa finally understood that trust, loyalty, and influence had been shaping events long before titles and applause entered the picture. Tears filled her eyes as she confronted how deeply she had misjudged the man beside her. Malik carried no desire for revenge because his greatest victory had never been recognition. As evening shadows stretched across the skyline, a lasting truth emerged. Attention may create the appearance of power, but loyalty is what truly sustains it when nobody is watching.